Hi folks, this is Tony for A Minute to Midnight with the second instalment of this series about my off-grid cabin. Please give it the thumbs up and subscribe to us. The pioneers did it, living off-grid. But my, how different the world was then. Today, having a cabin in the woods or in the countryside can seem like some sort of a blissful dream. But for those pioneers, it was just life as they knew it, and it wasn't always easy. It must have been a pretty hard life in many ways, but in some ways also simpler. In today's fast-paced world, it can be hard to keep up with the constant changes, stresses and pressures, not to mention moral decay, which seems to eat away at society more and more with each passing year. The pioneers knew nothing of computer chips and silicon, of skyscrapers and concrete jungles, and they had to live closer to nature in many ways. And I think there are a lot of people today that want to recreate something of that. In yearning for simpler lives for themselves, there's a growing movement of people that want to live off-grid, or at least to have somewhere to go to off-grid when they want to get out of the city, and to enjoy nature and God's green earth is a gift that I think none of us should take for granted. Having an appreciation for nature and somewhere awesome to enjoy it is certainly a blessing. In my title for this video, You Need Energy, it's kind of a double meaning, because you need energy in yourself and drive to do something like build an off-grid cabin. But also you need energy to power it. Now look at this awesome waterfall. We've just had a lot of rain, and look at the power in the water that could be even used and utilized to create energy and electricity in the waterfall. And now that's food for thought for the future perhaps. And then there's wind. Now that's another alternative. Look at this hawk. Isn't it awesome, catching and using the wind to soar on the currents? And then it swoops down, probably on some unsuspecting prey. But here's a scene I see played out day in, day out almost, and that is magpies. They don't like the hawks in their territory, and so here we see some magpies trying to drive the hawk away out of the territory that they claim is theirs, obviously. And so you see this happen time and time again, where the magpies will gang up and swoop in on a harrier hawk, trying to drive them out of their territory. It's peaceful and relaxing walking through field and forest and seeing things that nature has to offer. But now my cabin is just over that rise, so let's head over there and I want to tell you a little bit about how my cabin is powered. Now I mentioned earlier the pioneers lived off-grid. Well, of course they didn't have a grid to live on, so there was no other option. They didn't have the modern labour-saving devices and gadgets that we have today, but I like to create a bit of a pioneer type feel with mixing old equipment and furniture with some of the more modern gadgets and appliances that we have to help us living off-grid. And this is my little simple kitchen, and compared to what the pioneers have, using gas through propane cylinders and a simple hob to cook on is much more luxurious than the pioneers would have had, but of course a lot less luxurious than most people are used to in a modern home. And you can see here I have a Winterwolf chest fridge which can be run on mains power 12 volt or gas. I'm running it on 240 volt, which is the equivalent of New Zealand's mains power loading. And next to the fridge is a solar power generator, and this can generate 240 volt, 12 volt and also 5 volt for cell phones and so forth. It can generate up to 2000 watts of 240 volt power. And above the kitchen on the roof are 4 220 watt solar panels, and that is how I get my power. And the electricity is stored in 2 deep cycle batteries spec'd as in the pictures shown here. You can see a simple rotary timer there plugged into one of the outlets, and that has a fridge plugged into it so that if I want I can shut the fridge off for periods during the night to save power if it's not needed to be running. Originally I had 2 solar panels, and then I added a third and then subsequently a 4th panel, and originally I had just 1 battery and then I added a second one. There is 1 battery inside the case of that generator, and I drilled a hole in the side and added a cable to a second battery, which is what's sitting on the top of it. And the combination of the 4 solar panels and 2 batteries makes a world of difference compared to the original setup that I had. Even back in the early stages when Holly and I were staying in a tent and when we were putting down the foundations for the cabin, we were still using the 2 solar panels and the generator and just moving the panels around to catch the sunlight as we could find places for them amongst what we were doing. The system was designed for RVs and caravans, but since I've updated it, added those extra panels and battery, it pretty much is adequate for what I want in our small cabin. And you can see I can charge up with a little vacuum cleaner, charge cordless power tools, and run a fan and the fridge, and run lights and charge up my computer. I will say though that the fan in the generator is quite noisy. It doesn't bother me in the kitchen, but if you were somewhere where you wanted it to be quiet, it probably would get rather annoying. But it's certainly not a problem for me the way I've got things set up. I hear it in the kitchen, but I can't hear it in the main cabin. And also once the sun goes down, at that stage everything then is just running on what is stored in the batteries. The solar panels do produce electricity even in low light, but obviously once it gets totally dark they don't. When it gets dark I'll take you and show you the cabin at night and the lighting, but in the meantime my dinner's ready: rosemary chicken, homemade salad, green beans, boiled potatoes and a kumara, and just add butter and spices and salt and pepper and it's ready to go. Thank you, Lord, for this food. Thank you for a good day. Thank you for your provision and your grace, and I pray that Holly will be able to join me again and sit in her seat sometime, but I'm still going to enjoy this dinner. Thank you, Lord. Okay, so now it's dark enough to show you the cabin at night with lights on. I have a pair of vintage lamps and I have efficient low wattage LED bulbs in these. And these are running on 240 volts. And you can also see here a column type fan for the hot weather and cell phone being charged, and this is all running off a 4-way power board on the floor. I've also got a bright spotlight that has its own solar panel which I can use if I want some extra light for reading or something. It's a very useful portable lamp actually, and I do have other forms of backup lightings, pull out solar lamps and candles and so forth as well. These lamps are in the kitchen, a couple of pull down solar lamps, and also I have one 240 volt light in there too. And then kerosene as an extra backup. My main source of heating is the little Champion Runlight wood stove, and I also have an old antique kerosene heater as well, and that's portable with a handle that you can carry it by, but kerosene is a little fumy, so I prefer the fire where possible. Sometimes I just like the subdued ambience of candles, just like the pioneers would have had. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to us, and leave a comment or two as well, and hopefully we'll be back with more of these sort of videos in the near future.